Welcome to Focus Africa, where we bring you insightful discussions on key events shaping the African continent. And today we turn our attention to Ghana, where John Dramani Mahama has been inaugurated as the country's president for a second non-consecutive term. Now, Mahama's return to power marks a critical juncture in Ghana's democratic journey, celebrated globally for its stability and transparency in elections. However, his administration inherits significant challenges and economic recovery and inflation to governance reforms, as well as job creation.
So joining us this morning to delve deeper into that, Mahama's leadership on what it means for Ghana and the broader African context is Etse Sikanku, Associate Professor from the University of Media, Arts and Communications, Ghana. Etse Sikanku, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much to both of you once again for having me.
Yes, so there's so much to unpack here with Mahama's return to power. It's a significant political development, but what does his election or re-election victory say about Ghana's democracy?
Thank you very much. I think it signifies a further establishment and a further entrenchment of democracy on the continent. It also shows that Ghana's democracy is stable and has continued to mature over time, and that this is a democracy that it has been tried and tested, and it is one that has faced very different permutations. You know, if we had a lopsided outcome all the time, then questions may be asked. But this is a democracy that has traveled in a way that there have been changes to different governments or different administrations over time. In fact, we experienced the first one-term president under John Mahama, and it's the first time that we've had a one-term president go away. A president comes for 2 terms, and then this one-term president comes back. So I think it further establishes Ghana's democracy as a very, very rigorous and a very established one.
Very established one. Interesting. We also saw the inauguration was very interesting. There's a few things that I'd like to talk about there. But before we do that, I wanted to draw a parallel between this second non-consecutive term and draw the parallel between what's happening in the U.S. Trump as well will be inaugurated into office, and of course it will be his second non-consecutive time as well. What parallel can we draw here regarding what the people want for their leaders or from their leaders in the case of America as compared to Ghana?
You know, I think it's very interesting, the way in which these things happen. I really don't know, but it does look like maybe this is why it's important to do comparative exercises and to do international studies, because the concept of democracy is a common one to many countries, including Ghana, Nigeria, the United States, Western African countries. That's a global journey that most countries in the world are going on. So it's interesting that you bring in the United States, which is seen as one of the major paragons or the major bulwarks or leaders of democracy in the world. And for Ghana to be mimicking, well, not mimicking, but at least to be experiencing some of the things that an enhanced or established democracy like the US is experiencing, says something about the fact that democracy can also work in Africa. Because Donald Trump became president in 2016. He was kicked out in the 2020 elections, and he's back in 2024. The same thing, President Mahama lost in 2020, you know, and he is coming back in 2024. In fact, he also lost in 2016, lost in 2020, and is back again in 2024. So it's very interesting that this has happened, but I think on a global level, it shows, for me, one thing that I can say is that it shows that the people are becoming more and more discerning. It shows that the old frameworks within which we look at politics, it's not the same again. In the past, once you were an incumbent, you had a certain advantage once you were part of the establishment, it meant you had a certain advantage because you had access to power, you had access to resources, you had access to networks, you had access to the media, and so it was likely that you'd use all of this to your advantage and come back to power. But an incumbent like Donald Trump lost the election. An incumbent like President Mahama, remember, he was president actually before he lost. Also, he was not a fresh candidate, also lost an election. So those are incumbents losing. And I think it shows that the people are becoming more and more discerning, and that democracy is becoming more and more responsive. I think for Ghana in particular, I think that I'm trying to find the right words, but it shows a certain growth, even in the political culture or even in the democratic culture. And I say this because previously people used to vote en masse or in one block. You know, you identify as NPP or one party and that is it. Or tribal, they vote according to tribal lines. Right. Or they just vote based on what they see in the media, based on what politicians say, and based on who is popular, who has attention in the media, and all of that.
I guess you used the right word from before, which is discerning.
To be fair, right, and you know, so I think we're also missing a larger picture in this conversation, and that is pre-COVID. You know, the two incumbents who have now been, you know, elected, and Mahama has now been sworn in, and President-elect Trump will soon be sworn in, is that they were all pre-COVID, you know, presidents, and they all speak of, their rhetoric was of a time of economic stability, you know, and they are inheriting a period where there's now a living cost crisis, high living cost crisis due to post-COVID. Which is there. There's also inflation. There's so much going on, which Mahama is about to inherit. Also, Mahama himself also faced allegations of corruption, which was a platform that he campaigned on this time, saying that there'll be more transparency and much more accountability with his time at office. And so I have to ask you, with all of those challenges that he's inheriting, is he poised to bring solution to the people of Ghana?
Yes, I don't know how much of a factor COVID is now. It definitely was in 2020. I can say for sure that Donald Trump's management of COVID was definitely one of the major factors that led to his outset from power. In Ghana, it was in a more economic sense, but in terms of the management of COVID, I think that the general feeling was that President Akufo-Addo did manage the COVID quite well. And I mean, that verdict has come from both local and international organizations and agencies. And so I think to that extent, that is what we can say about COVID. But in terms of the effects, I think the economic effects may be what affected President Akufo-Addo. Definitely, although people have said that we've gone beyond COVID. You might say COVID, and definitely the government will say that, but there are a lot of Ghanaians who would say that, well, you cannot attribute everything to COVID, and that COVID is past and gone. Other countries faced COVID and they are trying to get out of it. But the government's argument was that it was just too much of an albatross, too much of an unprecedented event that it affected the country. But the fact of the matter is that the economy did slip. People were facing very challenging times, and President Mahama came to power on the back of promises or a campaign based on the economy. So to your question, what is the expectation? In fact, the major policy framework or the major campaign message or theme that characterized his campaign was that he promised a 24-hour economy. And that really caught on fire. It's an economic policy, but which can actually be summed up into a short bumper sticker word: 24-hour economy. And that really flew with the people. Yes. And I think moving forward, that is what Ghanaians are going to be looking forward to.
And the world as well will be looking forward to that, because he made that statement during his inauguration, his speech, was saying that, you know, Ghana is open for business and, you know, they want a 24-hour economy. But away from that, he also talked about climate change as well, and the ballooning, you know, population of the world, and how, you know, very, you know, very insightful solutions need to be made to address climate change. Seeing what's happening on the global stage, is he also poised for that? Is that all something that is at the forefront of discussion in Ghana?
Yes, he did. He talked about the economy, but he also talked about a green economy. He talked about Ghana's contributions to looking for sustainable energy, more environmentally friendly energy sources. And so, yes, there is the commitment to green jobs, to green energy, to cleaner energy, to more innovation and more sustainable forms of energy to power the industry and to provide more opportunities for jobs, to protect the environment. But I'll tell you that one of the major features of the administration is accountability. You know, I'll tell you what, there were a lot of Ghanaians who were not very happy with the expenditure of the previous government. They were not happy with the scandals, and they were definitely not happy with the governance of the country. And one of it had to do with issues concerning corruption, accountability, and the president had promised, it was one of the major things, that he was going to come and make sure that people were accountable and that all those who were culpable of spending the country's money would be held. And so one of the major things he did, even before the swearing in, is that he formed what he called the Oral Committee, and that is a committee for the retrieval of state loot, the retrieval of state money and anything that had been looted. Right. So many Ghanaians are looking forward to that. That's one of the first things that they are looking forward to, that maybe they'll be jailing some ministers, they'll be calling previous government officials who might have been perceived to have stolen money to face the full rigors of the law. And I can tell you that it's one thing that if the president doesn't fulfill, a lot of people will be very, very angry, because people are now very concerned about how government uses their money, and it is based on that they vote.
Etse Sikanku, thank you very much. We're coming to the end of this conversation, but I just wanted to draw another parallel. Your president said Ghana is open for business. Judith, what did our president say? Subsidy is removed.
Subsidy is gone.
Yeah. But then again, there was another instance during the inauguration that caught our eye, and it was the presence of Burkina Faso leader Ibrahim Traore, and the applause that came after that. This is an interest for West Africa. With that kind of reception, what does that say about West African democracy?
It's a very interesting question, and
I hope you will summarize, however, because we're out of time. But go ahead.
Okay. You said I should summarize. How many minutes do I have?
Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I know. Thank you.
What? Go ahead.
2 minutes.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, please. Give me your best shot. Yes, give me your best shot.
Okay. Oh, was that question meant for somebody else?
No, it was meant for you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. So I think that it was something that really caught the eye of many people. But you see, what I think is that there's an appetite for more discipline. There is an appetite for out-of-the-box leaders. The people are very, very, very disenchanted with career politicians. People want political outsiders, people who come and get a job done, people who come and hold people accountable. I've heard people on the streets say a lot of times that I think what Africa needs, or what Ghana needs, it's military government or military dictatorship, because there is just too much impunity in government. Under democracy, everybody just does anything that they want. And there's also a certain recognition that the Burkinabe leader is young, he's energetic, and he's doing something new or doing something different out there in Burkina Faso. And I think these are the kind of things that ordinary people are looking for. And it seems that if they would get it, whether in a democracy or a military regime, they're probably willing to go in for it, as far as the government will serve their needs and will be there for them. And so I think it's something we begin to take more seriously, that they would applaud a military ruler.
Right.
I mean, that definitely is a very strong message for West Africa, and it's something that we should explore more in the future.
Sikanku, you've done a brilliant, go at that question there, because, and then it just begs to ask a question about whether or not we are myopic, because if they're saying that democracy, the leaders of our democratic system have ruled with impunity, then what do we say about the military themselves, when it comes to impunity? But we do, maybe this conversation will be for another time.
But
Many thanks. We appreciate you for doing this with us and for coming on. And shout out to the little ones behind you there. We see them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.